The next chapter that we're going over is diseases of the respiratory system. And we know that's the number one portal of entry for pathogens, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so diseases of the upper respiratory tract. When we talk about the upper respiratory tract, we're talking about the nose, pharynx, also known as your throat, and any structures that is associated with that. Normal microbiota of the upper respiratory tract are streptococci and staphylococci. Those are common. There's others also, but those two are common. And some pathogens also are present as normal microbiota, those being Streptococcus pyogenes and Haemophilus influenza. And we know that the respiratory tract is a portal of entry to the blood because it's going into your lungs, and your blood has to go to your lungs to get oxygen and get rid of the carbon dioxide and take up the oxygen. And so this can spread these pathogens throughout your body via the blood and get to internal organs. Just a little picture of the upper respiratory tract, in case you forgot what it looks like. We have bacterial infections of the upper respiratory tract. These are common. You're gonna probably see a lot of these. One is strep throat or streptococcal pharyngitis, caused by that group A streptococci, Streptococcus pyogenes. But what do we know about Streptococcus pyogenes on blood oxygen? Hmm?
Hemolysis.
Yes, it's a beta hemolytic type bacteria. In other words, it breaks down those red blood cells. It goes after those. Streptococcus pyogenes is one, and I think you're gonna have a test question on this on the final, that causes a lot of different things. It causes strep throat, it causes impetigo, causes erysipelas, causes acute bacterial endocarditis. And you don't have to copy down what it is, I'm just gonna say, we had this at the beginning, we know that it forms a chain, and it's a gram-positive organism. Streptococcus pyogenes has a capsule, and a capsule is a virulence factor that makes them more powerful to cause disease. Symptoms of a strep throat are local inflammation, fever, sometimes you get tonsillitis, get enlarged lymph nodes, coughing, your tongue can get really red, and it is transmitted by respiratory secretion. Treatment is penicillin. If untreated, a complication that can happen is rheumatic fever. That is where you get a fever and inflammation of the small blood vessels, and they may have permanent scarring and distortion of the heart valves. If that happens, then it's called rheumatic heart disease. Diagnosis is by a rapid antigen detection test. They used to do a throat culture, but the thing with a throat culture is that they have to send it out to a lab, and then the lab is going to streak that out on blood agar, and it's going to take when you're growing cultures, you can look at them at 24 hours or at 48 hours, but it's not quick, so you have to wait to give the doctor whatever's going on. So they've developed these tests, like they'll check for the antigen to this or the antibody to the antigen, and seeing if you have that antibody in your blood that's to this antigen, and it's very quick. I asked my doctor to do this on me, and they had the answer like before I left the office. Scarlet fever, that's when you have strep throat and you also have a skin rash. And the rash is caused by a bacterial erythrogenic, meaning reddening, toxin. So the toxin causes a pinkish red rash and a high fever. And for the bacteria to be able to produce this toxin, that bacteria has to be infected with a lysogenic phage. Remember, a phage is, we also call it a bacterial phage. It's a virus that attacks who?
DNA.
What is a virus? What does a bacterial phage attack? Bacteria. It's a virus that goes out and kills bacteria. But in a lysogenic state, it doesn't kill that bacteria. Its DNA incorporates itself into the bacterial DNA, and then it's called a prophage. And so that gene that produces that toxin comes from the bacteriophage, and now it's in the DNA of the bacteria. So every time that the bacteria replicates, it's replicating that gene, and then it's able to produce these toxins. So in scarlet fever, the tongue has a strawberry-like appearance. It can lose its upper membrane, becomes red and enlarged, and the skin peels off like a sunburn, similar to the scalded skin syndrome caused by Staphylococcus aureus. Scarlet fever used to be the leading cause of death in children in the United States prior to antibiotics, but today it's just a mild and rare disease. We have antibiotics now. So there's a picture of the tongue from a child that has scarlet fever. You can see, let's see, that it has, the pitted look like a strawberry, so that's a strawberry red tongue. Here is that rash caused by the bacteria. Pretty much. Diphtheria. Another disease that oftentimes affects children. Diphtheria is Greek for leather, and the pathogen is a bacteria called Corynebacterium diphtheriae. It's a gram-positive non-endospore forming rod, and it is pleomorphic, and it can look like a club with a little club on the end of it, and if you go to stain it, it stains unevenly. It also has an exotoxin that is produced when the bacteria has that lysogenized phage in it, a lysogenic phage that carries that tox gene. There's ways that we can give DNA to other organisms. One way was through a plasmid. One way was through this bacteriophage that has that lysogenic phage. So here's a picture of the bacteria. You can see that they look like they have little clubs on their head. So if you were to have diphtheria, you would have a sore throat, a fever, of course you wouldn't feel well, get swelling of the neck, and you get this tough grayish membrane that forms in the throat, the biofilm. And in that biofilm, you get it made up of fibrin, dead tissue, and the bacterial cells. And it can totally block the air to the lungs. So there's a picture of that growth back in the throat there. So we have a vaccine that we're prevent this. It is DTP or DPT as we used to call it. Now they have it this way, and they have AP, meaning that pertussis part is acellular. But in this vaccine, the D stands for diphtheria toxoid. And that a toxoid is an inactivated toxin. It produces a toxin, so we want something that will work against the toxin, so we have to have this toxoid. And it causes your body then to produce antibodies against this diphtheria toxin. The main effects of the diphtheria toxin are nerve paralysis, toxic myocarditis, and it can result in death as well. Death in young children can be from the spread of that pseudomembrane along the surface of the larynx, and it causes obstruction and can asphyxiate the child. Treatment is, you can give antibiotics to kill the bacterial cell, but you also have to give an antitoxin because the toxin's what's causing the problem. There's also a condition called cutaneous diphtheria that infects the skin, causes a slow growing ulceration, also covered by a gray membrane. And cutaneous diphtheria is common in tropical countries. Cutaneous diphtheria is responsible for most of the cases of diphtheria in people that are over 30 years old. Respiratory cases are spread by droplet infection or contact with the cutaneous diphtheria that exited from that. Viral infections of the upper respiratory tract. The common cold is one of them. And it can be caused by 200 different viruses. And there's a couple of them that are responsible for most of the